So we've decided at New Life to do a new series on presenting discipleship issues. And on the discipleship issues, the first team that's asked to do things is the giving teams. And just would like to present to you a series of videos, a series of really Bible passages. And that if you look at these passages, and I'll maybe share just a brief thing about them, but the real point, I think, will be in some of the reflections. The things that it causes me to think about are maybe the same things it causes you to think about. So maybe questions will be arising in your mind about how are you doing about your life as a disciple of Jesus. That's what the point is. We're starting in giving, and I would like you to turn to 2 Corinthians 8 and 9. There's no better passage in all of the Bible than those two chapters dealing with giving. Those are really clear, direct, gospel-centered passages about giving. So if you want to find the spot in the Bible that really speaks to you and how you're doing in your discipleship, in your walk with Jesus, in your giving life, these two chapters are going to do it. And I only want to speak right now about some brief verses. So I'll trust you to read on your own 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verses 1 through 7. And the big thing I see in there that has caused a lot of question in my mind is verse 2. He talks about the churches in Macedonia. So I know that for instance, will be the church at Philippi. That's one of them. And we know a lot about that church and the suffering that happened there. And you can read all about that in the book of Acts, how much suffering happened in that spot, and folks who lost their homes, and on, the affliction that they had. And he speaks in our letter, 2 Corinthians 8:2, that out of their great trial of affliction and the abundance of their joy. So he's talking about something physical, the deep trial of their affliction. And I was stunned by that word trial. That word is a testing process that proves character. And I had really not given, I don't think, adequate thought in my own mind to how these trials are a test of giving. And that's very clearly the case in that chapter 8 in verses 1 through 7, that somehow in the midst of this test, they give freely, voluntarily, no requirement. But it's the context of the great trial of affliction. So they've got this inner hope, this inner joy, and this outer affliction, and those two combine to this voluntary giving. And so here's the questions I've been thinking about, and maybe you can think about with your discipleship. Points to ponder. Can God use money to test us? Especially money in the context of affliction, if we have physical affliction or shortcoming, or the word used in verse 2 is deep poverty, depths of poverty. Poverty that word is lack. So in the depths where you can't even measure the bottom, their lack of stuff and their use of giving, this whole chapter is on giving, that they give in that context proves, so this testing has given an outcome of something wonderful about their discipleship. So the question I'm asking myself is, can God use money and my lack to test me? Can God use giving, an opportunity to share voluntarily, to test me? And as I'm asking it for myself, I hope you're asking yourself those same questions. Another point to ponder, in my giving, in my manner of giving, do I honor God? Or do I scorn him in my giving, or even rob him? Rather than passing the test, do I flunk the test and become a thief? Wow. So I'm just putting together some scriptures, that one from Malachi, but just thinking about using giving as a test of discipleship. Now, it's not only true with money. Giving, I learned in Corinthians chapter 8 that giving is much, much more than that. And I love how it's put there. He says in verse 5 that they gave themselves to the Lord. I remember Nancy Griggs in our own fellowship just so clearly speaking about the issue of giving in that very way. That's always and foremost a gift of ourself. And so her focus was always on the martyrs. And when she spoke about giving, that those who gave their lives. Well, Paul says of these church at Philippi, they gave themselves to God, to the Lord, and then had these voluntary things after. So I'm thinking about giving. We say in our culture, time is money. That's one that so many live by. So then I'm thinking about giving in not only what Paul's talking about in 8 and 9, but just in the context of the whole. How about our use of time? Do I give God first out of the lack of time, which I often have? Do I still give to God my time? Do I give to others time, even when there's this press on so many? It's such an important question to ask myself in my discipleship about giving. If first fruits giving is to God before you see enough, I see that square with these Macedonian churches so much that it's about faith then and trusting in God. So I ask myself, how comfortable am I with the principle of first fruits, with the principle of giving out of the midst of lack, of not having? Lastly, I know Satan can use fear to keep all of us from being financially faithful. And so I think of the scriptures and songs that I want to have firmly in my mind, so that in the midst of tests and trials, that my trust is directed to God. Maybe you have scriptures, songs that you have. We're going to come across one in Corinthians that I use regularly with giving, that God is always able and he will supply what we need and always supply enough so that I can live generously. I trust him. He's proven faithful. Maybe you'll have other passages that are important to you. I'd like to hear them. Is it Luke with the birds and the flowers? What passage, what hymn speaks to you and comforts you and guides you to trust God further in the midst of your discipleship about giving? Well, this is from New Life, another venture in discipleship, and hope that your walk with Jesus grows closer day by day.